Good evening. I am Michelle Bobrow, a member of the League of Women Voters of Maplewood, South Orange, New Jersey. We're delighted to co-sponsor this candidates forum with the PTA President's Council, co-presidents Amy Foreman and Jung Lee Masters. Thank you. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Elections and voting are core concerns for the League of Women Voters. We are committed to providing fact-based information about issues and positions candidates take on those issues to help voters make their own decisions and participate in the electoral process. The League never supports or opposes candidates for office or political parties. Any use of the League name or footage from the debate in campaign materials, literature, or advertising of any kind, including internet, cable, or television, has not been authorized by the League of Women Voters. League places an emphasis on voting. Voter registration drives, registration in high schools and colleges, including Columbia High School, and efforts to streamline voter registration laws are all a continuing part of League's activities. Other voter service projects, such as providing information on the candidates' positions and an explanation of the ballot questions, are a part of every election and distributed through local and state leagues. Study your sample ballot or mail-in ballot carefully before voting. Throughout its 93-year history, the League has been a voice for sound government practices. If you are interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, I encourage you to pick up some of the League's information, which is on the table outside or on our website at lwvnj.org. As a courtesy to the candidates, please turn off all your cell phones and other electronic devices, and please refrain from taking photographs during the debate. Hold your applause until the end to allow the candidates their maximum time to share their views. The Board of Education election, which will be on November 5th, has 4 candidates for 3 three-year terms. Tonight's moderator is Dawn Clark, Vice President of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters of New Jersey and a member of the Union Area League. Please welcome her.
Thank you very much for inviting the League and for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. Let's get this out of the way. This evening's forum should be very interesting. You have 4 candidates vying for 3 three-year term seats for the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education. And we want to give them all an opportunity to present their views. And then we're going to ask you to make the decision and go and vote for 3 of them out of the 4. I'd like to go over the format for this evening's forum. And each of the candidates, having chosen their position by random, and they're seated that way now, but each of the candidates is going to have the opportunity for a 2-minute opening statement. And following the 2-minute opening statement, they are going to have an opportunity for each of them to respond to questions that had been prepared earlier and which they had time to prepare themselves. So they'll each have 1.5 minutes for the prepared questions. After that, we're going to have questions from the floor. And we're asking you, the audience, to get some index cards and pencils and write your questions out. Now, please be advised that, you know, I'm old and I do need to be able to read them. So write carefully and legibly, please. It's important so that I can read them. But your questions are important, and they will have to follow the League policy, however, that all the candidates agree to. and that is that all of your questions and all of their follow-up statements must abide by the league policy of being addressing issues and not personalities. So I would please ask you to do that and follow those directions. Then you will pass the questions to the people, and they will get them up to me. So each of the candidates will have that opportunity to respond to the questions, your questions, for 1 minute. After the question period is over, then we will conclude the evening with a 1.5 minute closing statement from each of the candidates in a reverse order. Now, we are going to have timing, and the timers are sitting down front. And when there's 30 seconds to go, they will hold up a yellow card, and this helps both candidates and me to keep track. When there's 15 seconds, they will hold up an orange card, and then when the time is completed, they will hold up the red stop 30-second card. Now, they're all good educators, so they're not going to do a lot of run-on sentences, but we'll let them finish their sentences. All right. If there is no other concern before us, I think I would like to reiterate, though, that we should not have any cell phones or any cameras going off, no flashes. It's pretty hard on the candidates. It distracts them immensely to see little red dots and flashes and to hear the gentle chimes of somebody's cell phone. So please try to turn all of those things off. The other thing is, yes, I would appreciate it, and it would flow better if you do not applaud after each of the candidates. It gives them a better opportunity to use up the full time, and we'll hear from all of them that way. So without further ado, I think we're going to start with the opening statements. I'm going to introduce the candidates to you. Miss Stephanie Lawson-Mohammed drew the first speaking position, and next to her, Beth Dougherty is going to be our speaker number 2. Then is David Giles. Giles is candidate number 3, and number 4 is Johanna Wright. And they're going to start their 2-minute opening statements. So, Ms. Lawson-Mohammed, would you please begin?
Thank you. My husband and I moved to South Orange 2 years ago because we knew it was a diverse community with a solid school system. The district is delivering for my 3 children. I've seen it through the committed teachers and the effective leaderships in our schools. Unfortunately, many parents I have talked to have had less than positive experiences in our district. I'm running because I believe that every child in this district deserves an excellent education, a system that believes in their abilities and challenges them to go beyond what they ever thought possible. I believe we have excellent teachers and leadership in our schools, and I want to see that essential asset nourished through focused professional development, encouraged collaboration, and endless support that extends that excellence in teaching and leadership to every classroom in every schoolhouse. We are at a juncture with so much change that we need all leadership in the district focused on successful implementation of our major initiatives, whether district initiated such as International Baccalaureate or externally mandated such as Common Core. A house divided in the face of certain change is at risk of stagnating progress instead of propelling success. I know these are heavy lifts, but I also know it's possible. I come from a family of educators. Both my mother and paternal grandfather retired as principals. Although I chose a different path, I've been committed to educating underserved youth since college. My volunteer record of 12 years speaks for itself. From tutoring in Atlanta to running Newark Pace, I poured my energy into helping open doors to new possibilities for children in broken schools. We are fortunate enough to live in a community where our schools are vibrant, but we must fight to ensure this vibrancy be accessible to all students. Education is not a zero-sum game. There must be infinite possibilities for all. We're talking about the human spirit.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Beth Dougherty.
Thank you. I would like to thank the President's Council and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight, and to all of you for coming out. My name is Beth Dougherty. I lived in Maplewood and South Orange for 22 years with my husband, Paul. I have 4 kids, 3 of whom have graduated from Columbia High School in the last 3 years, and my youngest is a junior there. I've been involved with the schools for 17 years. I've been on the board for 6 years, and I've been the president for the last 2 years. And while I've been on the board, we have made significant improvements that have benefited every student. We have overhauled the curriculum in language arts and math. We've provided more students with access to rigorous courses. We've provided more professional learning opportunities for our teachers, and we've increased the use of technology district-wide. And there is measurable progress. Our test scores are rising. There's an increased percentage of students taking advanced honors and AP classes at the high school. And more of our students are receiving state and national recognition in the fine arts, student publications, athletics, robotics, and other endeavors. But I know that there is still much work to be done, and that is why I'm running for a 3rd term on the Board of Education. I want to make sure that every single student is truly engaged in the classroom and inspired to do their personal best, that teachers receive the professional learning opportunities that they need, that parents are engaged and informed, and that resources are allocated wisely to make sure that we keep our educational system strong while being responsive to the taxpayer burden. I'm excited about running on a slate with David Giles and Stephanie Lawson-Muhammad. As a team, we provide the right combination of leadership, experience, and fresh ideas to continue leading our district in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is David Giles.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the President's Council for hosting this debate, and my fellow candidates for running. My wife and I have lived in South Orange for 13 years. Our son completed 5th grade last year at South Mountain and just begun at South Orange Middle. I have served on the board now for 3 years. But as I mentioned before in the previous debate, my involvement with education started long before then. I came up myself through public schools in Los Angeles, where most of my schoolmates were from working class Hispanic and Black families. My own family was similar in many ways, but also different, particularly for that time. My father was a Black chemist from Detroit who had moved to Mexico for work. There he married my mother, and they eventually moved to Los Angeles to raise our family. A third of my classmates at the time from my high school didn't graduate, and most were not prepared for college. But I had an advantage because my own father's education, and fortunately I did go to college. Still, I have never forgotten the experience of my peers. After teaching for 2 years in a public high school, I dedicated my career of almost 25 years as an attorney to representing parents and students in the area of education. Education involves the intellectual, social, emotional, physical, and artistic development of our children. It is fundamental to who we are and who we can be. It should be a positive experience, but too often it isn't. As a board member, as in my career, I have worked hard to provide all students the opportunity to be successful in school. During my tenure on the board, we have made substantial progress toward that goal. We see the progress in the rising test scores, growing number of students doing advanced work, and where the students are graduating, or going to college, that is. And we also see it in our 6th grader, my wife and I do, and we hear it from our neighbors.
Thank you. And the final opening statement will be from Johanna Wright.
Good evening, everyone. I want to first thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this wonderful forum along with the President's Council. But I also want to thank all of you for coming out this evening because you care about our school district. I'm a 30-year resident of our community. I'm a mother and a taxpayer. And as such, I have deep concerns. I have seen changes occur over the past few years in which our school rankings have dropped within our school peer group, while our school budgets have increased. I am a mother whose daughter went through the South Orange Maplewood school system. I'm a mother who knows how wonderful our school system used to be. And it is that way it was that way for more than 7 decades. It was ranked as one of the top school systems in New Jersey. It was the envy of many of our neighboring school districts. They would try to raid our teachers and our administrators to take our talent. But there was a pride and fierce loyalty to being a member of the South Orange Maplewood School District. Our children were free to come back into their school buildings during lunch and after school, to use the facilities to learn, to participate in many clubs and after-school activities. It was those types of activities which made our school a blue ribbon and middle states district. Our children were accepted at almost any college they applied to. They qualified for many scholarships. Their graduation rate from college was very high. Many have gone into successful careers, and quite a few South Orange Maplewood graduates have come back to the district that they love to help other students experience the same learning and nurturing in an environment that they had. As a mother and a former teacher in our school system, I can tell you the education our children receive today is not the quality it used to be. At the last debate held at DeHart Center, thank you.
It's hard sometimes. Now we're going to go on to the prepared questions, and I'm going to start with you, Ms. Wright, and we'll come this way. Okay. But I'm going to read the question for everyone to hear. It's regarding the Common Core. The new Common Core state standards bring both challenges and opportunities for school districts in New Jersey and across the country. Please share your thoughts on how the Common Core will impact teaching and learning in our district. And you got to do this in 1.5 minutes.
The Common Core was adopted in New Jersey in 2008 to offset deficiencies in the school curriculum. It was an initiative started by the states, but since its induction, its implementation timelines have been delayed, and as we have learned in this state and other states, there are many sections of this initiative that are not helping children learn better. Know that neither President Obama nor Secretary of Education Arne Duncan have enrolled their children to take this initiative. It is one of several state initiatives created by the same group who developed No Child Left Behind. If we are leaders, why aren't we taking more of a leadership position on this issue, like they're doing in Bergen County? As of June of this year, some of our major education associations, such as the National School Boards Association, the National Association of Secondary School Principals, the American Association for School Administrators, and the American Federation of Teachers are calling for a moratorium on this program. Montclair, this past Sunday, was told by the Newark-based Education Law Center to reject the Common Core. That its testing is flawed and will repeat the flawed testing results of the last 10 years known as No Child Left Behind. So why is our district and my opponents embracing it? Some say the Common Core, at best, are urban solutions being also applied to suburban districts. But current results say this initiative is not working in urban districts either.
Thank you. Mr. Giles, would you address Common Core?
I'm optimistic about implementation of the Common Core in our district. To be successful in the future, our children will need to be able to think critically, exercise good judgment, adjust to novel situations, and communicate and collaborate with people from around the world. These are the kinds of skills the Common Core is designed to teach. But effectively implementing the Common Core is not simply about adopting a new curriculum. It requires a transformation of what happens in our school buildings, in our classrooms, in our homes. Over the last 6 years, the board has fundamentally overhauled how we do things in South Orange and Maplewood. From top to bottom, we have improved our curriculum, improved teaching, improved instructional leadership, and fostered a culture of high expectations for all students. These changes have placed our district in a good position to implement the Common Core. Ultimately, however, the successful implementation of the Common Core will depend upon the dedication, creativity, and inspiration of our teachers, And based on the excellent work of teachers that I have seen as a parent at South Mountain and South Orange Middle, and that I learn about all the time as a board member, I have no doubt that our teachers can effectively implement the Common Core. The changes we have implemented thus far have not been easy on our teachers, and full implementation of the Common Core will challenge them in the future. But I am confident that our teachers will meet that challenge and that our students will reap the benefits that the Common Core promises to bring to our schools.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
The Common Core are learning standards that have been adopted by 46 states, including New Jersey in 2010, in an effort to more clearly define what students are expected to learn to be successful in colleges and careers after high school. These standards focus on literacy and math, but they are not meant to limit what students learn. Rather, they are aimed to make sure that students are literate across all subjects, including the arts, social studies, science, and technology. Over the last 3 years, groups of teachers and administrators in our district have been upgrading the curriculum to meet these standards. In the classroom, students will use more nonfiction and more complex reading materials across subjects. They will also be required to provide evidence from text in their speaking and writing assignments. In math, students will be engaged in problem solving, which requires them to apply knowledge they have learned to things that they haven't seen before and persevere until they figure out the answer. We are providing teachers with a variety of opportunities to learn best practices that are necessary to teach to these new, more rigorous standards. And a real impact of Common Core in the classroom is that it will make teaching and learning more student inquiry based, teaching students to learn how to ask the right questions and then how to find the information that they need to answer these questions, not just memorize information for a test and then forget it.
Thank you. Ms. Mohammed, Lawsama Mohammed.
The country has been struggling with the right way to standardize public school curriculum for years. Common Core is a coming together of the separate views of how to best accomplish this by providing fewer standards in an attempt to get students to dive deeper and become masters of their own learning. There is still work to be done, but our district has focused on curriculum development for years. And so I'm confident that the transition to Common Core will occur less painfully than in many other districts might experience. Our district overhauled English language arts, and the adoption of Singapore math aligned tightly with Common Core, and our teachers are already benefiting from the instructional support they've received in those prior transitions. I believe that Common Core has the ability to be a net positive for our district. That being said, we must ensure that our district continues its commitment to the arts. We must apply a balanced approach to ensure that areas not covered by the Common Core continue to receive the support necessary. We must be diligent to ensure that efforts to prepare our children for the 21st century workforce and the march to more stringent curriculum standards, we don't do that at the expense of developing the whole child and tapping into their passions, which ultimately provide the foundation of a truly fulfilling life.
Thank you. For the next question, which is going to be about the budget, I'd like to start with you, Ms. Doherty, and we're going to go in the other direction. The question for the audience is, over 95% of our budget is composed of fixed costs and state-mandated spending, while approximately 94% of our revenue comes from local resources. How do we balance being sensitive to the impact of tax increases on our already stretched community with adequately serving our growing population and needs of students? Of the less than 5% non-allocated costs, what specific program cuts or efficiencies would you recommend? Aren't you glad they got that in advance? Yes, Ms. Doherty.
Okay. So this is the dreaded question every year as our costs outpace our revenues by literally millions of dollars. A huge responsibility of the board is to determine where to draw the line on the tax increase on the operating budget within state limitations. Capital improvements to facilities are not part of the operating budget. But the reality is that the lower the tax increase, the more cuts we need to make, which usually means the more teachers we need to lay off. In trying to keep the tax increase as low as possible, we need to be careful not to dismantle the quality of our schools, which would be disastrous to our two towns. So for next year, we plan to open an early learning program at the Montrose building, which is currently empty. This will help both reduce the cost of out-of-district tuition while possibly generating revenue through tuition-based students. We are participating in an energy program with PSE&G to install more efficient lighting fixtures to reduce energy consumption and costs. And we will have to consider labor, which includes 75% of our operating budget. The average cost for a teacher, including benefits, is about $90,000. We must look to continue to look for programs that can be delivered more efficiently, and as well as the administrative costs throughout the district. And when we negotiate with teachers' salaries, we have to strike a balance between paying a competitive wage to our teachers, but at a level that enables us to maintain class size, preserve programs, and be sensitive to the extreme burden on our community, tax burden.
Thank you. Mr. Giles, your thoughts on budget?
I don't believe our hands are completely tied when it comes to 95% of the budget. While certain services may be legally mandated or certain costs fixed by contract, we retain discretion as a board to address costs throughout the budget. However, getting to the question, as a board member, I don't come every year with a list of proposed cuts. I sit as a representative of parents, students, and taxpayers to steer the district in the right direction and check its use of public funds. We establish parameters for the total budget and priorities for the district. The budget we approve reflects those priorities. I am proud of the budgets we have passed during my tenure over the last 3 years. During the first two, despite rising costs and rising enrollments, we kept the total impact of the operating budget on taxpayers to no more than 2%. While we did impose a 2.47% tax increase for this year, this was a smart, limited, and one-time use of our taxing authority to pay for new Chromebooks to prepare for PARC, which is the state's new computer-based testing program that will be starting in spring of 2015. Despite rising costs, we have found savings without seriously harming our core program. In fact, we have even been able to strategically reallocate resources to improve services such as our early reading program. While I don't have recommendations of where to cut for next year, I know we will need to work extremely hard again to operate more efficiently and maintain our strong academic and extracurricular programs.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, your thoughts on budget?
Well, there are at least 5 categories I'd recommend for some initial cuts on our operating budget. 2 areas I'd recommend we tap for additional monies to offset some of our taxes, and 1 area I recommend that an additional process be added. When we're talking about facilities, we need to look at the new security gates that were installed 2 years ago in the middle school that still do not operate. New doors have been installed, do not fit, and won't lock. Additional monies expended to make them operational is not going well at all. The new computer controls that regulate heat in the school buildings like Columbia High School are not operational. A new roof installed with leaks within 2 years, and the warranty will not pay for the repairs to correct the leak. My recommendation? There must be competent follow-through on the contracted repairs before the district pays for them. District monies are leaking heavily in these areas. I'm going to talk about SCIP personnel, and I'm going to go on to sponsorships and grants. But for high-cost budget drivers, let's look for new options. There are new models for school districts who have health insurance plans based on state plans. We need to look at some of these new options. Our district has not wanted to review them for possible savings. But the biggest change in budgeting process happened this year when the Board of Ed voted themselves the only taxing authority for 50% of our property taxes.
Thank you. The final on the budget, Ms. Lawson-Mohammed.
In my role as a senior manager, I have managed a multi-million-dollar budget for the last 8 years. So I understand the challenges with keeping expenses under control and ensuring capital investments are managed efficiently. I also understand the difference between my capital focus budget and the expense focus budget the district must pass and adhere to each year. So when we look at the 95% versus the 5%, I think the efficiencies must come from both sides of the equation. For example, efforts made to serve more of our students in district will reduce tuition expenses, and upgrades to buildings that make them more energy efficient can serve to reduce our energy expenses. Both of these fall under the required expenses. In the variable expenses column, currently budgeted at $6.4 million, I think there are opportunities to leverage corporate and private partnerships for funding STEM, grants to support technology expenses, and continued partnerships with groups like Achieve. But I think it's worth noting that the question calls out that 94% of our revenues are local. In the 2010-2011 school year, Governor Christie cut state aid to districts in an amount equal to 5% of their total operating budget. Even now, we are still at funding levels less than before Christie took office. We've lost a lot under this leadership in Trenton, and I think we need to get some traction around reforming the school funding calculus at the state level.
Thank you. Tough question. The next question is going to be on technology, and Mr. Giles, I'd like to start with you. The question is, as we expand the use of technology in classrooms, how do we balance the goal of preparing our students for the future with a concern about equity and excellence in terms of access to technology outside of school hours? Mr. Giles.
Digital technology has and will continue to transform our lives in the future. We need to teach our students how to effectively use technology, including, of course, our students with limited resources. But our goal for technology is not simply to teach students how to use it. Technology presents new, exciting, and ever-changing potential for teaching and learning and reducing costs. Online learning, for example, holds great promise for offering new programming and potential for serving more students at lower costs. But education remains at its heart a human experience, and we need to make sure that technology never drives our schools, but serves to enhance instruction. Nevertheless, to fully benefit from the educational experience, our children will need to access technology. So just like our teachers in schools do a lot today to ensure that all children have books at home, we will always need to make sure that children have access to technology regardless of their economic resources. We already are opening our libraries at the middle and high schools to provide students access to computers after school, and we have partnered with our public libraries to do the same. In the future, we will have to be even more creative to make technology as accessible as possible. So, for example, we might make families aware of programs like Internet Essentials, which I understand offers high-speed broadband internet access for $10 per month to any family that has a child who qualifies for free and reduced lunch.
Ms. Dougherty?
Sure. The board is very aware of equity issues related to the increased use of technology. However, we need to find a way to address these challenges and not let them prevent us from using technology. Laptops, smartphones, tablets open up a world of resources to our students and teachers. Our kids are growing up in a digital world, so we must make sure that they are savvy and responsible users of technology. To make sure all of our students have access outside of school hours, we should keep our school labs open after the bell rings, which we do now to a certain extent. We need to work more with the public libraries to make sure that students have access there, and we need to explore partnerships with other entities that could provide access on evenings and weekends. And we also need to make sure that teachers are sensitive to assignments that require a bulk of computer use at home versus in school. We are currently studying what's called one-to-one computing, which is a computer like a tablet or a Chromebook for every student. We piloted this in the 6th grade last year, and we are expanding these pilots to most of the other schools this year. The board has asked the administration to deliver a cost-benefit analysis by the spring of 2015 to see if one-to-one computing makes sense for our district. I personally would like to see us expand the use of technology throughout the district in a way that is both cost-effective and equitable for all students.
Ms. Lawson Mohammed, Technology.
We are living during a boom of what some folks call education technology. A flood of new companies have entered this arena year over the last 3 years, all vying for a foothold in our school. This boom has been met with much criticism from established institutions, and it's understandable why there would be hesitancy when such a strong surge in the for-profit market. However, if we step back and look at the big picture, we're operating in a great time to be making big and small technology decisions. Many platforms out there, like in Moto used in our middle school, are still free. So the opportunity for schools to trial platforms to see what works are out there. Similarly, on the household side of the equation, gone are the days when parents must purchase software packages and specialized hardware to provide out-of-school enrichment for children. There are a host of acclaimed platforms out there for free, from Khan Academy to adaptive learning options and myriad apps. Often, the cost of entry is a tablet or an entry-level laptop and internet access. And even while these two essential components may be elusive for some families, we should be looking at creative ways in the district to reduce the barrier to entry. When I was a college student at both Georgia Tech and University of Michigan, there were programs that offered discounts to families buying their students their first computer. We need to look for opportunities like that in our district.
Thank you. And Ms. Wright.
We should be putting our endeavors into regaining our top ranking as a top technology school district. And we have been doing this for the last few years. We've invested in Chromes and iPads and IT labs, and we even have 4 3D printers in the school district, plus more technologies. The robots can tell you that. The school district is piloting Overdrive as a program in which students can borrow digital content to read their personal iPads, smartphones, and on loan for 2 weeks. However, as this question reads, several of our students don't have access to these technologies when they leave school. How do we resolve this situation? So, let's think of answers that lay outside of school buildings themselves. What if we were to create tech centers within our community for students where they could go, borrow and access IT hardware that they don't have? There are models of this tech center concept already existing in our community in some of our libraries. One of our libraries even have a 3D printer. Libraries already lend some IT equipment, cameras, etc. There are grants and partnerships, both commercial and academic, that could create these tech centers. One type of tech center could be a fabrication center which could partner with local businesses and residents. We could create a living digital community if we thought, planned, and acted as a community versus a school district and the towns acting separately. That was done when we formed YouthNet, and I was asked how to implement it at South Orange Middle School.
It's hard. Okay, thank you very much. For the fourth question, I'm going to start with you, Ms. Lawson Muhammad, and the question is on challenge and support for students. The district's vision for 2016 includes high expectations for all students with success at each grade. How do you balance the need to provide challenging and engaging learning opportunities for all students, including those who are academically advanced, with a need to provide support to students struggling to master grade-level content and skills? Again, all in 1.5 minutes.
The problem with the setup here is that education cannot be viewed as a zero-sum game. Investments made in raising the bar in our system need not be made at the expense of any group of students. That's why I'm so excited about the implementation of International Baccalaureate in our middle schools, which is a program centered around professional development and dealing with differentiated classrooms that provides teachers with support and best practices in teaching to really engage students and get them passionate about what they're learning, and taking different approaches to teaching than anything we've seen in our education unless we were fortunate enough to come through an IB program. In addition, when I went to the Parents as Partners Night at Clinton, I learned more about Singapore math and what they're doing there. And so when I see how the instruction time is broken up into time where they're teaching new concepts and what they call IMI, individual math instruction. That's key, because we're ensuring that all students receive new information, and then those that can soar ahead get that opportunity, and those that need support in more basic skills get that opportunity there as well. We need to make sure that this kind of application is done in our district across classrooms. It's critical to ensure that all students get what they need.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Okay. This question is one that unfortunately causes a lot of anxiety in our community. So I think we need to change the conversation and understand that we are not robbing Peter to pay Paul. We are investing in changes that will benefit the entire spectrum of students, including the vast middle that often feels left out in these conversations. The work being done to make curriculum more engaging is critical for all students. For example, we've introduced a new robotics class at Columbia High School this year that any upperclassman can take. Some students with exceptional math and analytical skills might immediately excel at the type of problem solving and programming required in this class. For other students who are completely disengaged and behind in math, robotics might provide the spark that makes them develop a stronger interest in math, which in turn will engage them in their supplemental math class that they must be successful in order to be successful in robotics, which they think is exciting. Providing exciting and engaging curriculum is key for every student and can benefit a wide range of learners at once. And of course, professional development is key. We have to provide teachers with more learning opportunities to improve their ability to reach and challenge a wide range of learners. Everyone knows this is hard work, but it is the right work to make sure that all of our students have a chance to be successful after high school.
Mr. Giles.
The question of how to balance the needs of academically advanced and struggling students is based on a false premise. It assumes that students are categorically different and that efforts to serve them are mutually exclusive. I don't see our students that way. All students excel and struggle in different ways, and any given student might excel or struggle at different times. We have a diverse student body with a wide variety of needs, interests, and talents. Even in homogeneous classes, good teachers must use different strategies for different students. And in heterogeneous classes, rich and engaging instruction is needed to motivate all students. While we need to provide different strategies and interventions to advanced and struggling learners, our task is not to choose one over the other, any more than it is to choose between arts and the athletics. Rather, we must provide strong classrooms that effectively serve different students. And we must provide interventions and programs that meet a wide variety of student needs. For example, we have improved our early reading interventions and are now reviewing our special education supports to more efficiently and effectively serve struggling readers and children with disabilities. We will receive soon from the superintendent recommendations on how to improve services for gifted students. And we've implemented a summer step-up program that has dramatically increased the number of students ready to be challenged in accelerated math classes. These are not competing or mutually exclusive initiatives, but integral parts of a broader system designed to serve all students in our district.
Thank you. Ms. Wright.
When you look at the Vision 2016 statement on our district website, they have words that can inspire us as a district, but not if they are not implemented. These are general words, and children are not general. They are very specific individuals. When you look at Vision 2016, they talk about parent engagement, high expectations, teachers valued as collaborative, reflective, and innovative professionals, understanding and using our diverse community, facilities, technology, and partnerships for enhanced learning and wise use of resources. These are general terms, but this is not what's happening in our district. What needs to be done right now is to repair the holes in our children's safety net. The safety net, which is the collaboration between the teachers and the parents. So let me answer that question that was asked and talk to you about what it takes, because I know, to support and challenge children and how it's done in our school system something which I have done, not just for my children, but for many over the years, including yours. How many children have I helped out here? Is anybody out here want to raise your hand? Any parents? It's about getting to the parents, getting to the students, and letting them know that the only thing that they can control is how hard they're willing to work at something. And you can read more about it on my website.
That's a good answer. Thank you. Now we'll move to the questions that you've submitted, and we've got a lot here. We can't ask all of them, but we'll do the best we can and try to move along. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Wright, and we have to do this in 1 minute. What do you see as the opportunities and challenges in this district?
Well, when you're talking about opportunities, we have the opportunity to take advantage of a better taxing system. When we're talking about our budgets, when we're talking about us being the only district of its kind in the state that has an elected board and a board of school estimate, and to know that for the next 3 years or forever, it seems, that 9 people are going to be responsible for your tax dollars. 9 people. And we're talking about a tax, a property tax, our school taxes that are now 2.93%. I want you to ask your neighbors in surrounding areas if they're over 2%.
Mr. Giles, what do you see as the opportunities and challenges in this district?
One of the interesting things about running for school board is that you do get to meet a lot of parents or re-meet a lot of parents in coffees and different forums and out on the street. And I must say the greatest resource that we have, or the greatest opportunity that we have in this community, is the community itself. It's the parents, it's the kids, it's all the wonderful diversity, all the amazing values, the energy, the spirit. When you go through this process, you can't help but think this is an amazing place and we could do amazing things with our children. So that's what I think the opportunity is.
Ms. Doherty.
Okay. One of our biggest challenges right now, I mean, it's a good thing, is our growing enrollment. It's a sign that we're doing really well. There's lots of young families moving to our district with kids. Our kindergarten class is completely full, and most of our grades are completely full. So it presents an opportunity that to really look at the high school anyway is for some alternative pathways to graduation, if you will. To find a way that we've got these growing enrollments, but there's got to be a way to provide really great educational opportunities with them without having to continuously increase the number of staff, and we don't also want to increase our class sizes because we know we have budget constraints. So I think that's a very exciting opportunity, whether it's internships, service learning opportunities, things like that at the high school. There's online learning opportunities that we're exploring that would both expand the educational opportunities available to our children, give them really relevant experience in the real world before graduating, and with bringing in a new high school principal soon, that's something I look forward to exploring further.
Ms. Lawson-Muhammad.
As far as opportunities, I think increasing the positive narrative of our district. In our coffees, we've heard stories of parents of kindergartners saying, I don't know if I want to send my kids to these schools, and that troubles me because we have an amazing school system and our elementary schools are just vibrant places for children. We need to do a better job of making sure that the narrative of all of the positive things that are happening in our district are out there for folks to see and hear. One of the challenges, I think, are that continuing to maintain support for fostering the diversity that we have in our schools. It is so critical, and it's something that's such a draw in this community, that our children grow up in diverse environments and they really learn how to interact across social boundaries, across racial boundaries. That is so critical, and I think we have to make sure as a community we fight for that.
Thank you. Mr. Giles, I want to start with a sort of combined question here. There's at least 5 or 6 different cards already that's asking about the achievement gap among students. How has the current board worked on narrowing the achievement gap? What are your thoughts on leveling and how this prepares some students better for college than others? Can you start that, Mr. Giles?
Sure. The issue of the achievement gap isn't a simple issue, but really encompasses the entire program that we are working on. And so what we've been doing has been working on the district from top to bottom, from things that we're doing to improve reading instruction at the elementary school, to the things that we've done to improve the curriculum in terms of language arts and math, in terms of things that we're doing in the middle schools, in terms of bringing international baccalaureate program to the middle schools, in terms of de-leveling to increase access to students to high-end programs, in terms of things that we're doing to step up summer classes, to give kids access to higher-end classes, to things that we're doing to ensure that all the high school classes are teaching at college prep level programs, to maintaining AP, to giving access to AP. What we're doing to improve teacher instruction, improving evaluations, improving leadership. We've done a lot, and we're doing a lot.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, do you believe the board has done enough to close the achievement gap? What would you suggest?
Well, I would suggest that we go into a district or someplace in the states where they have actually closed the gap to find out what they did to help us. It makes sense to me. The other thing is high expectations. If we don't have high expectations for every child, we're going to have that gap. And in a district like this, with the demographics that we have and the amount of taxes that we pay, there's no way that we should even have an achievement gap. So, you know, the other thing is leadership. You need good leaders. You need people who have experience. And I have that experience. We need someone who's going to speak out for our children. But again, we have to work hard at accessing, giving access to every kid and affording them the opportunity that everyone else has. We can't have the haves and the have-nots, because that's what we're coming to.
Ms. Lawson Muhammad, your thoughts on achievement gap?
One thing that I've been exposed to in my preparation for the board is this concept that this country has taken the achievement gap and the narrative of that we hear, and the impact that simply the way we deal with it in this country has on each and every child. Children that are on the underside of the achievement gap ultimately are impacted every day when they are told that they do not perform as high as their white counterparts. There have been studies that have shown that when people are given a test and that they are told that everyone performs the same on that test, that you do not see that gap. I'm not saying that we need to ignore the achievement gap. We need to make sure that we have systems in place like are happening to eliminate it. However, we really as a community have to change the way we're talking about it and realize the impact that it has on everyone.
Ms. Dougherty.
So we have done a lot to both raise high expectations for every student and to make sure that the kids have access to the rigorous courses. I completely agree those are absolutely critical for all children to be successful. And that's what de-leveling the middle school was really all about, is the work in the honors level classes. That was what middle school should look like. The level 2 and the level 3 classes that were there, those really didn't serve any purpose, and we saw that in the trajectory when we looked at students who had graduated from Columbia High School. The kids that were in level 4 had a much better chance of succeeding in college than the kids who were in level 3 and level 2. So the other work that we've done, that David went through the whole laundry list, so I won't go through it again, that really is making sure that every student in every class, there's high expectations, there's rigor, and then we've invested an awful lot in professional development, because really that's the key. We have to make sure that our teachers also are prepared to be able to reach and challenge this wide range of kids in their classroom.
Okay. Are we all set for another question? We have, again, several questions, and perhaps we can start with you, Ms. Dougherty. Several questions on teachers and about what is your position on the new tenure reform law. but would you start with much of a district's successes and failures rely upon the type of teachers it attracts? What would you like to see the board do to ensure the quality teachers?
So start with the hiring process.
Yes,
Okay.
and then talk, if you can, also about the tenure reform law.
I can't do both. in
You
one
can't do
minute.
both, okay? Then we'll just start with the hiring, and we'll
Okay.
do another minute on tenure reform.
So we currently actually, while I've been on the board, we have very much increased the strictness of our hiring practices. We have a committee of people that review the teacher applications. Then we actually have every single teacher come in and do a practice lesson and put it against the Danielson framework for teaching, which we'll hear about in the evaluation process. So it's a very rigorous process that our teachers go through in order to be hired into the district. The only time there's an exception to that is if it's a hire at the end of the summer and there actually are no kids in class to be able to do a sample instruction for, and then they'll sometimes to give a sample instruction to other educators. So we have really upgraded over the last 6 years that hiring practice. We even keep track of what's the percentage of top hires that we get, you know, our first choice applicants, and why do we not get them? You know, is it for personal reasons, they got a job closer to home, or was it salary? Like, what was it that made us miss our first choice? But by and large, we get a very large percentage of our top choice hires.
Ms. Lawson-Muhammad, can you address hiring of teachers?
Sure. The teacher population needs to reflect the student population, and I think that the district needs to put more effort in the hiring of African American teachers. I know that they have tried, and I've heard discussions on that, but we've got to try harder. We've got to go deeper. We've got to go find strong African American teachers so that our students, not just the African American students, but all students can see these strong teachers, and that will impact the way that they view their outcome.
Ms. Wright.
We have a history of not knowing how to hire and not knowing how to fire. And that comes from 30-plus years of experience in this district. And when we're talking about teachers and evaluation process, we have teachers here that have given their lifeblood, where we have new young administrators coming in. They're not evaluating, they're beating people down. What we need is collaborative working together, respecting the fact that teachers are the experts, allowing teachers to do the things that they need to do. And when we bring them in, they need mentors. The veteran teachers should be mentoring our younger people to let them know what's going on. But I agree with Ms. Muhammad, that we do need to go out and look at trying to hire people of color across the diaspora. We don't have that here in this district, but our complexion has absolutely changed.
Thank you.
And we
Mr.
need to do
Giles.
that.
I think our community is an attractive community to teachers. It's a diverse community, it's an interesting community, and I think teachers want to come here. I think we need, as a board, of course, to maintain our budget and our operations so that we are well run, so that the teachers can rely on the school board running a good district, and we need to maintain competitive salaries, and we need to maintain a school system with keeping the curriculum, a good curriculum, good principals, good professional development, good evaluations. The entire system creates a good working environment for teachers, maintaining professional environments where teachers are communicating and collaborating with each other, maintaining a good relationship between teachers and parents in the community. Basically, running a good district in our community, I think, is going to be attractive to teachers and will keep us able to attract them and maintain them.
Thank you.
Can I just
Yes,
make
you.
one little follow-up on the
30 seconds for this. She would like a follow-up.
Yeah, just on the professional development piece and the mentoring piece, because it is very, very important. And we do have our experienced teachers can mentor our younger teachers. Brand new teachers can get a mentor teacher. We also have built into the schedule time for teachers to collaborate with each other, to share best practices. We've also instilled something called learning walks, where groups of teachers go around and observe a teacher in the classroom and then go back and reflect on what they've seen. And that was so popular that we had to add additional sections of those learning walks last year, and we'll continue to do it this year.
Anyone else? Okay. Ms. Wright, would you like 30 seconds? Yeah, follow
Yes,
up?
we're talking about evaluations and we're talking about teachers. How would you like it if someone were to come into your job and evaluate you and knew nothing about it? Would you like that? Because that's what we have here. And when we hire teachers to teach, let them teach. Our teachers aren't teaching anymore. We're having workshops and workshops for another workshop and another workshop. That's why we've become a focus district. That's why we're failing, but yet we're instituting the Common Core and all of these things and we're paying good money for it to fail.
Thank you. Did you, Mr. Giles? No, please. Mr. Giles, 30 seconds.
Yeah. You know, I was a teacher right after I graduated from college for 2 years before I went to law school. And one of the things that I recall, the only thing I recall about being evaluated at the time was that my supervisor was actually asleep in the back of the room. That's not how we should evaluate teachers, and that's certainly not how we do it here. We spend, or actually our staff, our supervisors, our principals spend a tremendous amount of time learning about what good teaching is and how to evaluate teachers. They work closely with teachers in developing the entire process. So I think the evaluation process, of course it's stressful for anyone, but is a good process here.
Thank you. All right. Then I'm going to start with you, Ms. Wright, on the second one, which is, can you talk a little about your position on the new tenure reform law? What are your thoughts on it for 1 minute?
Well, when I was hired as a teacher, my first year I made $6,000. Not a lot of money. And so when we think about what teachers do, how they do it, tenure reform, the one thing that I did have was tenure, and they told me I have a good pension when I retired and Social Security and benefits. They weren't very honest, because here I am retired. I made a very little bit of money, and all of a sudden teachers are greedy. They're trying to make too much money, but the tenure law is what has protected teachers all of these years, and all of a sudden they've become maligned. And I don't know why. Everybody can think of a teacher that they've had somewhere along the line that made a difference for them. And to take tenure away from teachers, a profession that everybody has said, I love it, but I don't want to be a part of it. It's a horrible thing. I think it's egregious.
Thank you. Mr. Giles.
I think the important thing about tenure reform is that it connects teacher performance and the performance of students to the evaluations of teachers in a meaningful way. And I think that's important. I think it's a good thing for education. I think there are concerns about tenure reform, and there are concerns about how we're going to measure student performance and how we're going to use data to do that. If I were a teacher, I probably would have some concerns. As a board member, I'm going to do my best to ensure that we're using that law to improve instruction for our students.
Okay. Ms. Doherty.
Sure. So there's really two big pieces to the tenure reform. There's the teacher practice piece, evaluating teacher practice, and then there's evaluating student outcomes and using that to evaluate the teacher. On the teacher practice end, we have been doing that for about 4 to 5 years with the Charlotte Danielson Framework for Effective Teaching. It's a rubric that lays out this is what good teaching should look like. The administrators have been trained on how to use that. The teachers have been trained on what it means. And the purpose is actually to improve the teaching and learning in every classroom. It's not to catch the teacher and get rid of them. It's to improve everybody's practice. So I feel very strongly that that is the right way to go. The idea of using student outcomes to also impact the teacher evaluation, I wish we could push that off. I think it's too early to have to do that. Especially if we're changing, to the Common Core and the high-stake testing, that part's just too much at once. That's being dictated to us by the state. So that's kind of where I stand, that I approve on the teacher practice end, but the student outcome piece I think is too fast.
Thank you. Ms. Lasam Muhammad.
I'd like to equate the tenure reform to what I experience as a leader in the wireless industry. So I have 5 direct reports and 93 people in my organization. those people need to have clear expectations of what is expected from them, from their job, the objectives that we have for them. And as if those individuals that are not living up to that, my managers are expected to provide feedback to them. They're expected to provide feedback on something happening in the moment, at mid-year, and at year-end. And they are given opportunities to improve and elevate their performance. But if they can't, if they do not live up to that, then there are consequences to that. So I don't want any of my employees to go. We invest a lot in our employees through development and whatnot, and the same thing in the school district. But we've got to make sure that we're holding them accountable to a high level, just like we hold our students to a high level.
Thank you. We have several questions on the offering of technology in the schools. And I'd like to start with you, Ms. Lawson Mohammed. Do you agree that it is important to teach and encourage technical skills such as auto mechanics or woodshop? If so, what can you do to help the district achieve this? And another one wants to, how can you improve teaching for technological careers?
Okay, so I'm going to take the technological careers, given that I'm in technology. So many of you have heard of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And that has really been identified as one of the major growth areas in this country. So if that's where the growth is for jobs, then we owe it to our students to make sure that we're educating them so that they can enter that workforce, whether they're entering it at entry level, or preparing them for community colleges, or preparing them for four-year institutions and onward and upward to master's degree and doctorate degrees. That is the future of this country, and so we have to make sure that we're tackling that in mathematics in our school, with exciting science offerings in our schools, but we also can't afford to do it all in the school. So we've got to leverage some of the exciting online opportunities and universities that are offering enrichment, and that students that can propel ahead can do that. And I know that they're talking about offering some kind of opportunities in the high school that students can do those kind of courses.
Ms. Dougherty, can you address?
I just want a little bit of clarification before I address it, because the STEM...
I'm putting together about 4 different...
Okay, because, well, all right, so I'll just launch into this. So I think I heard 2 different things in the question. So STEM, I completely agree with Ms. Lawson Mohammed. I'd like to see us incorporate more STEM opportunities for our kids. Robotics is an example of that in the high school this year, under the engineering and technology. I also heard a question, though, about vocational skills.
Yes.
That would be the workshop and the automotive. I don't think there's a push to bring back those type of programs into our high school. There are vocational schools that our kids can choose to go to and be a part-time student or a full-time student at a vocational school. But we are not a vocational high school. They've really regionalized those efforts. However, what we have found is that all of the careers where you can sustain yourself right out of high school are going to require some type, even if it's a certificate program, some type of further education. And the skills that we're providing you with in high school, when we talk about readiness for college and career, include the same type of problem solving, group work, critical thinking skills that you're going to need to be successful in those type of certificate programs as well.
Thank you. Mr. Giles, can you do that combined?
Yeah, so I'll address in terms of VOTEC schools or vocational schools, certainly when I grew up, our high schools had those programs. I think it would be unrealistic for us to try to do that, and even just keeping up with technologies these days in a regular high school would be difficult. And most counties do have the VOTEC programs that they offer both for general ed students and for classified students with disabilities, and those offer some really tremendous programs and are strong both in terms of the vocational component as well as the academic component. I think that the challenge for us aside from, of course, making those opportunities available, we want students to be able to graduate, and if they want to be a plumber, if they want to be an electrician, if they want to be an auto mechanic, those are tremendous jobs that make good money, that are, very interesting and good work. But they need to be able to read, write, do math, and do the kinds of things that we want our students to do. They need to be able to communicate. They may need to be a boss someday. All the skills we're going to teach them will be helpful. After high school, they can join apprenticeship programs, different types of vocational programs to take those skills and do what they want.
Thank you. Ms. Wright.
Yes, I can remember back in 1998 when my daughter took auto mechanics at Columbia High School. It was one of the most rewarding experiences that she had. And the thing is, when we think about the achievement gap, we have to think about all of those children that we locked out who had great skills with their hands, who can fix, who could repair cars, who could do all kinds of things. Wood shop. I can remember when we had wood shop, when the kids would make rocking chairs and take it down to the hospital for the border babies. Our kids were doing things. Call a carpenter to your house right now. Call an auto mechanic to your house right now. These are some of the things that we had in place. There was no reason for them to be taken away that helped us to become that blue ribbon school district, because we afforded our kids every opportunity in the world right here, and we didn't mind paying for it. But now we're paying for things that we're self-inflicting on ourselves. So I'd say, let's do it. And we have this thing with the county where our kids can go up and take things, but we had it here. With high taxes, we took it away.
Thank you. We don't have a lot of time, and this is going to be a tough one. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Giles. What are your thoughts on the New Jersey Department of Education Consolidated Monitoring Report on IDEA programs and the subsequent corrective action plan? In 1 minute?
The state reviews what school districts do on a regular basis. Every 4 years they come into the schools and they look at a number of requirements, and they look very specifically, and they look at a wide variety of programs. When they reviewed our district, the state did find that there were some things that the state found were out of compliance, and they brought that to the attention of the district, and the district reviewed it. They reviewed it with the board. And they did a number of things. Some of the items they had, recognized perhaps that they were in error and agreed to make changes or fix the problems that were identified. The other thing that they did, some things the district disagreed with and came up with corrective action plans in order to, they challenged some of the findings that were made, and some of those things we are still waiting for the results from the state. Generally, if you look at the entire budget, and they were relatively minor problems. And
let's let him go
okay.
Finish this. Okay. Ms. Doherty, can you finish his?
Finish the thought. Sure. So first of all, the IDEA is for special needs. And what the Consolidated Monitoring Report, it identified things in a couple of different categories. One was where documentation was not thorough. They weren't saying that the services hadn't been provided. It was that the student files weren't up to date with all of the information like they're supposed to be. In other cases, they were saying some of the services might not have been provided in every situation, that it wasn't denied to every child, but it wasn't consistently implemented. So like Mr. Giles said, we appealed some of the cases where we have proof that actually, we did document or we did provide it. And then in other cases, we said, okay, you're right, we need to provide better oversight of the child study team or whoever it is to make sure that the services are being provided to the students on a consistent basis. So we value reports like this because it's very important for us to make sure that we are providing the best services possible and consistently for every student. It had no monetary effect on the district whatsoever. It was really procedural, but we take it very seriously, and the corrective action plan is in place.
Thank you. Can you address that, Ms. Lawson Mohammed?
Sure. We're in a public school system. And in a public school system, there is public oversight. That's critical. It is critical that we have bodies that will come in and ensure that we are following all the rules. And so if they find things that we need to address, it's in how we react to that. And from what I'm hearing, we reacted, we did what we needed to do to make corrective action, and hopefully there was action taken to ensure that these things not happen in the future. And that doesn't mean that there are not going to be other opportunities where we may be faulted for something, because that's how life is. But it's how you react and making sure that we put the right things in place so that they don't happen in the future, and looking to make sure they don't happen.
Thank you. Ms. Wright.
Well, they're talking about the future. This has been happening for the past few years. And when we're talking about Title I funds, we're talking about children with special needs, our most vulnerable population, that we can't adhere to the rules and give them the things that they need in order to be successful, in order to be able to maneuver through this world that we have. But to sit here and to say that we're appealing, we're going to look at it, we're going to look into it, when it's been consistently happening year after year after year. I even know a parent who was given a harness for her child instead of an aid to restrain, so to ride the bus. So, you know, I have a real problem and a real issue with no one holding anyone accountable on the Board of Education for the things that we're being fined for.
Thank you. Mr. 30 seconds follow-up. Yes.
I mean, the consolidated review is a very technical process, and it's very procedural. I have attended the special ed PTO meetings for 3 years. I have met with parents regularly about special ed issues since I've been on the board. And so we talk to parents about what their actual concerns are about the IEP process, or about services, or about what's going on in the schools. We talk to the administrators about it. We talk in committee about it. We talk at the board about it. So there was some technical issues that we had to address. But in terms of services, I think the board does communicate with parents and is responsive to parents.
Thank you. If that's all, then it is time to move ahead. And I thank you for your answers. I also thank you for your questions. There's a few more, but they were good questions. So now we're going to move to the closing statements. And we're going to go in the reverse order. So we're going to start our closing statements, and they will be for 1.5 minutes. And we're going to start with Johanna Wright.
We have heard inspiring words, nice words this evening. As a community, we like to hear these kinds of words. However, we also need as residents to find out if the nice words we hear spoken or written are truly being implemented in our school district. Sometimes, though, the nicest words are the true words, words calling us to action, words telling us as residents what we need to hear and should be doing in our school district. In 14 years, we've gone from being a top blue ribbon middle state school district in New Jersey to being a school district on probation, a focus district, while paying some of the highest property taxes in the state. Even this year, the Board of Ed levied one of the highest school tax budget increases on our community, if not the highest one in the state. At present, our schools are a very difficult place to learn whether your child is an AP student or one ensnarled in our achievement gap morass, one who has special needs, or one of our many wonderful children we lovingly call normal. We need to change business practices on how our district spends money. We need to more deeply analyze the changes we make in our curriculum. We can inject programs into our curriculum because those programs' names resonate on a resume. What I stand for is someone to hold the administration and board accountable for making those kinds of changes. I'm an experienced person, and I am asking that you vote for me, vote right. I'm the right that never left.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Giles.
One can't overstate how important education is to each and every student. I have dedicated my career to ensuring that the educational experience of all children is positive, regardless of who they are. As a board member, I've tried to do the same, to ensure that all children who are engaged and supported in achieving at the highest levels, whether they be students with disabilities, gifted students, or students who just fall through the cracks. While I have served on the board, the district has made many changes to improve our curriculum, improve teaching, and expand opportunities for students. We've achieved positive results evidenced by objective data, as well as what we see with our own eyes and hear from parents. But we face a lot of challenges in the future related to the heavy tax burden and budget constraints, implementing the Common Core, incorporating technology in our schools, and challenging all of our students to perform at the highest levels. We must ensure that changes already begun are fully and effectively implemented, and we must meet new challenges. I believe the progress we have made shows that Beth Doherty and I have effectively led the board over the last 3 years, and that we can continue to do so in the years to come. For these reasons, I hope that you will vote for my running mates, Beth Doherty and Stephanie Lawson-Muhammad, and me, David Giles, for the Board of Education.
Thank you. The next speaker is Beth Doherty.
Again, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and President's Council for hosting this event. On November 5th, I'm looking for your vote because I want to make sure that every child in this district gets the best education possible. There are so many pieces in motion right now. Some changes we have made by choice, and other changes have been imposed by the state. All of these changes are aimed at making sure that our students are engaged, challenged, and inspired to do their very best. And it is critical that we have a board that can strike the right balance between partnership and accountability with the administration to enable our district to continue moving forward. I also want to make sure that every stakeholder has a voice and understands what we are doing throughout the district. Based on the feedback from our annual survey, we have already started working with the superintendent to expand opportunities for parents and teachers to communicate with the board and be part of the decision-making process. Systemic change takes time. It's hard work, and it takes stable leadership. I know David, Stephanie, and I share a commitment to stay focused on continuous improvement for all students. Our combination of proven leadership, experience, and fresh ideas will enable our district to accelerate toward our vision of excellence and equity in public education without excuse. On November 5th, I urge you to vote for David Giles, Stephanie Lawson-Muhammad, and me, Beth Doherty. Thank you.
And now the final speaker is Stephanie Lawson-Muhammad.
Thank you for being here tonight to engage in one of the most basic civic duties we have as neighbors. And thank you to the Women League of Voters for your thoughtful choice of questions and for giving us the opportunity to share our vision for our district schools. Education is the ultimate equalizer. It is the primary ingredient for successful outcomes, the most basic answer to many of today's troubling concerns. Yet education remains one of this nation's most troubling unsolved riddles. But I've never been one to run away from a challenge. In fact, at my core, I'm a problem solver, especially when it's something worth solving. And the future of our children is just that. It's priceless. I've solved difficult problems throughout my career in the wireless industry, pushing a workforce to take on more challenging work that ultimately improve their performance of day-to-day functions that they've done for years, completing capital implementations in very short time frames and sticking to tight budgets, and digging in to get at the core of issues to help the team right the ship and deliver on objectives. This is the value that I've brought day in and day out for the last 18 years, and I've done it while balancing the needs of my 3 children and husband. It is that same focus and determination that I'll bring to the board, a commitment to dig in and get to the root of issues. So on November 5th, I ask that you vote for Lawson-Muhammad, Dowdry, and Giles for school board.
Thank you. And now I would invite your applause. This is a marvelous showing of volunteers for your community, and they've done a good job. You've done a good job in questioning them. So we do appreciate the fact that you spend so much time and energy and all of your personal resources on doing this. It's a good thing. Thank you. I would now like to close by doing the usual thing, and that is, it's now your job. You've heard what they have to say, and on November 5th, you go, you take your friends, your relatives, and everybody. Make sure everybody, well, registration is passed. But make sure you take everybody to vote. It's important. That's how you do your work. So thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate it, and we'll see you at the polls. Good night.